Thanks, Jay and Yewen. What a great tour through our Singapore Developer Zone for that fascinating panel discussion. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us to learn more about infrastructure modernization. My name is Vincent Tan, and I'm a customer engineer here based in Singapore, Google Cloud. Today, I will be walking you an introductory session on GCP foundations. And if you have any questions throughout this session, please feel free to enter them in the text box below the video. We have Google experts on standby to answer your questions live. Also, be sure to look out for our quiz questions during the session, and Jay will run through the answers and results during the break. So let's get started. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to walk you through the foundations needed in GCP before we start creating a project. Okay, so first we'll talk about Google Cloud Identity, and then next we'll talk about Resource Manager to set up your resource hierarchy, and then third we'll talk about Cloud IAM, and fourth we'll talk about support, and lastly I will show you how you can get started in the easy way. So let's dive into the first topic, which is Google Cloud Identity. So let's first make an important distinction between the three A's of controlling access. The first A that we have over here is authentication, which takes care of the identification of a user. Typically, it is done through some form of verification, for example, like your passwords or your security key. And then the second A, we have authorization, which is the set of permissions that a user is allocated after authentication. It tells you who has what access to which resources. Third A we have over here is auditing, which is the monitoring of the resources accessed or modified by a particular identity. It helps you answer the question of who did what, where, and when. In GCP, we implement this with three distinct products. For authentication, we have Cloud Identity, and then for Cloud IAM, for authorization, we have Cloud IAM, and then for auditing, we have Cloud Audit Logs. So to use Google products, such as GCP or Google Workspace, your company users needs a Google account. Google Cloud Identity can help your company set up and manage the Google accounts of your employees. When setting up Cloud Identity, you will be asked to put in a domain that you own. For example, companyx.com. And once your domain is validated, a GCP organization will be created with your domain name, and you can start using GCP. So there are many features for Cloud Identity, but the most relevant features to GCP are: the first one is the user group and lifecycle management, which allows you to create, read, update, and delete your users and groups, basically CRUD your users and groups. And then the second one, we have account security. It will help you to enforce security policies for your users within your organization. And third, we have single sign-on capabilities for Cloud Identity, which allows you to configure Cloud Identity as either an identity provider or a service provider. So when setting up your GCP organization, there are two consoles that you will mainly be using. The first is Google Admin, which is on the left, right? This is the primary way for you to interact with Cloud Identity, where you can actually manage your users, groups, and authentication settings. The one on the right, which is Cloud Console, is used to manage cloud-related resources, for example, like your VMs, storage, or networking. Okay? So users and groups created in Cloud Identity can be assigned roles in GCP. It can be assigned through Cloud IAM, which is basically the authorization mechanism for GCP. And when setting up your GCP organization with Cloud Identity, you need to take note of two key administrators. First is your super admin, who is responsible for controlling the life cycle of groups and accounts. Second, they are also a point of contact in case of account recovery issues. And third is they are in charge of assigning a GCP organization admin role to your users. So once the super admin assigns the GCP organization admin on the right, you can see on the screen, the GCP organization admin will then be able to start creating the structure for your GCP resource hierarchy. For example, the folders, the projects, etc. And also, they can start defining the IAM policies. And lastly, they will also be able to delegate responsibilities such as networking admins or security admins through these IAM roles. Okay. So one thing to take note is the super admin has the ability to assign cloud IAM roles by default. And basically, super admin has a powerful set of permissions that are not necessary for daily use. So it is recommended to use a separate account that requires a separate login for super admins. And also implement security policies like enforcing MFA with a physical authentication device. These best practices will help you secure your super admin accounts and make users less likely to use them for day-to-day operations. Okay, so now I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the Google Admin console to show you how we can interact with the cloud identity. Okay, so over here you can see this is basically a Google Admin console. And if let's say I want to create user first, I can go into users. And what I want to do here now is to create a new user, right? So for example, a GCP user. Just going to put the name. GCP user vTime Pro. So vTime Pro is my own domain name, by the way. And then I can put a password for this user. And then once I add the user, a Google account will be created for this user. Okay. And then I just click done. Okay, so now I've created the GCP user for our domain. Now what I'm going to do is to create groups for so create an organization admin for the GCP so that we can create a group for them. So GCP organization admin. So we have GCP organization admins. Okay. So what I'm doing now is to create a group for the organization admin, right? And then I can put in the user that I've just created just now, which is the GCP user. And I can put it to restricted. And I can put it only on invited user and create a group. Okay, so here you go. We have the user created and a group created. So what I will do now is to assign assign the GCP organization admin to this group. Okay, so over here you can see I can go to GCP. Over here I have my domain, right? And through this domain, it will load the permissions. I will add the member. So I will add the organization admin that I created just now. So this is the group I created just now. And now I will just assign a role to them. Organize. So over here we have organization administrator. And now I just click save. So there you go. We actually created an organization admin group and assign it to organization admin role, so they can start using GCP. Okay. So yeah. So that's for cloud identity. And now now we have our cloud identity set up. The next step is to set up GCP resource hierarchy using Resource Manager. Okay. So Resource Manager provides you a hierarchy grouping to organize your cloud platform resources. So there are 3 different nodes to help you manage your resources. So at the top level, we have organization, as shown in the blue color circle, which represents a company, right? And next, we have folders, which provides additional grouping mechanisms between projects. For example, you can group your projects together and put them under one folder. And lastly, we have projects, which is basically the base level organizing entity. So organizations and folders may contain multiple projects, and a project is required to use Google Cloud. You can set IAM policy at the organization level, or the folder level, or the project level. And resources will inherit those policies from the parent node. For example, if you set a policy at the folder level, all the child projects will inherit its policy. So one thing to take note is the effective policy for a resource is the union of the resource policy and the ones inherited from its ancestor. And that means the most generous permissions will always take effect. Sorry. So some tips for you when planning your resource hierarchy is when you are planning, try to use folders to model the workload and access patterns instead of your company's structure. Okay? So GCP resource hierarchy structure is also flexible, so you can always start with a simple structure first and change or add more layers of folders and projects as needed in the future. Okay, so in this example, we have a common, simple, environment-oriented hierarchy with only one level of folder there, right? So you can see we have prod, QA, and dev. Right? So this is a very simple, and it's good for initial setup, and also you are able to expand afterwards, right? So when your company starts to grow and you want to expand this resource hierarchy, so you can actually expand it this way. So for example, you can add additional BUs in between. For example, in the prod environment, you can add retail or finance, right? So these are some examples for you to see, right? Okay, so now I'm going to show you how you can create your resource hierarchy in GCP. So going back to the Google Cloud Console, over here you can see I already have my organization set up, and I already have my production folder over here. What I'm going to do now is first, I want to assign the folder admin to my GCP organization admin. So just now I've created organization admins at bigtimepro.com. Okay, so what I'm going to do, before I can start creating folder, I have to give them the folder admin permissions, right? So I will click save. Okay. So once they have the folder admin assigned, we can start creating folders, right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a prod folder, a non-prod folder, sorry, non-prod. Right. Okay, so I can put it under my organization, and then just click create. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating the folder for my non-production environment. You can also have like test or QA environment if you need to. Okay, so now I've created my non-prod, and what I can do now is I can actually move my projects to my non-prod folder, right? So over here I can just move it to non-prod. So you can see it's really flexible, so you don't have to worry that you are fixed at the start, right? You can always change and update it as you go along. So for example, when your business starts to grow, you can actually create another folder called finance, and then you can basically create it under the, for example, prod environment. And then you just click select, and then you can just create. So this is what we call subfolders, and then basically you can put all the finance prod projects into that folder. Okay, so this is how you can create the resource hierarchy. Okay. Now, after finish setting up the GCP resource hierarchy, we can now use IAM policies to control access to the GCP resources. So Cloud IAM allows you to grant granular access to specific GCP resources. For example, like your Kubernetes engine clusters, your cloud storage buckets. So Cloud IAM helps you adopt the principle of least privilege so that you only grant the necessary permissions needed to manage your resources. So in IAM, permissions to access a resource isn't granted directly to the end user. Instead, permissions are grouped into roles, and then the roles are granted to the identities. For example, your Google accounts or groups, right? So you can also set IAM policy at the organization level, or the folder level, or the project level. For example, if you set an IAM policy at the folder level, then all the projects in the folder will inherit the same policy. Okay. So like I mentioned, roles are basically a group of permissions, and there are 3 types of roles in GCP that you can use, right? The first one is basic roles, which consists of owner, editor, and viewer roles. They have many permissions across all GCP services, so it's good for you to use initially, but when you are starting to implement least privilege, right, you don't want to use it because it has too many permissions. So what we will recommend is to try and use predefined roles, which is the next one. Predefined roles provides granular access to specific GCP resources. So they are created and managed by Google, and permissions are updated automatically so you don't have to manually update it. So for example, when new features or services are released, the permissions will automatically be added to the role. And then lastly, we have custom roles, which are user-defined and user-managed. It allows you to customize permissions to meet your specific needs. Custom roles are not maintained by Google, so when new features or services are released, the permissions will have to be added manually. Okay. So it is always a good practice to group users with the same responsibilities into groups, and then assign IAM roles to the group rather than to individual users. Because granting roles to individual users can get complex really quickly, and each time someone switches team, you will have to review the roles that they have, and then this can cause a lot of headaches. So instead, for example, you should create a data scientist group and assign appropriate roles to the group and let the data scientists interact with GCP resources, for example, like BigQuery. And when a new data scientist joins the team, you can simply just add them to the group, and then they will get all the permissions that is needed to do their job. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you how we can assign Cloud IAM. Right, okay, so over here, like you can see, I have, let me show you what I have over here. So I have actually a DevOps team group that I created. Okay, what I'm going to do now is to assign my DevOps group a logging administrator so that they are able to access the logs of my production environment. Okay, so what I can do here now is to basically add my DevOps team over here. And then I can put DevOps, GCP DevOps, GCP DevOps and bitcoinpro.com. Right. And then I can just give them a login admin. So I'm giving them a login admin in my production environment. So one nice thing about the IAM, about resource hierarchy is, if let's say we go to the project, because I assign at the folder level, so if we go to the project, you will be able to see that it actually inherits the, right? It actually inherits the role from the folder. So the DevOps team will be able to access all my projects within my production folder, okay? And this is how you can you leverage Cloud IAM and resource hierarchy together to control access. Okay, so last one I want to talk about is support. Okay, so this is the last step that we for today, right? So GCP support is your first line of defense during an outage, and they should always be contacted first. GCP support operates 24/7, and they can help you fix technical issues, address platform stability, and increase your operational efficiencies. So there are two types of support model in GCP. The first one is role-based support. The second one is premium support. So let's talk about role-based support first. Role-based support is designed to address the support needs for development and production environments. You can choose from 3 support roles on a per-user basis. So you can choose either basic, development, or production. So there are a few advantages when it comes to role-based support model. So first, you get predictability because you are only charged a flat fee per user per month instead of a percentage of usage. And then secondly, it's very customizable because you can customize the support by mix and matching different support roles for your different user needs. And third is flexibility. You can always change your support on a monthly basis as your business needs evolve. If you are hosting mission-critical workloads on GCP, premium support would be recommended for you because it includes additional features to help you minimize risk. For example, like technical account management service, event management service, and also faster response to critical cases. For example, like 15 minutes for priority 1 cases. So when choosing the type of support, you should always consider the response time required. Right? For example, production support gives you an hour of response time for priority 1 cases, but development support has 4 hours of response time for priority 1 cases. So be sure to choose the support level that meets your business needs. Okay, so I will just quickly show you how we can go enable support. So over here, you'll be asked to go through this to enable the support, so it's really easy. And then once you enable the support, we can go to settings to add our users so that they are able to create the support. So I can just add, for example, my GCP user that I've created just now. And then I can give him or her this production support role. Right? So this is how we can assign the support. And then once we assign the support, we can actually start creating the cases. And if you just go over here and you can just create cases, if let's say you have an issue, you can create P1 cases, for example. So I'm not going to really create a support case now. So just to show you how to do it. Okay, so now you must be thinking that there are so many steps to get started. So is there anything that can help you with to get started easier, right? So you're in luck because we have exactly the feature that can help you with all this setup. Okay, so introducing you the GCP setup checklist in our Cloud Console. It provides easy to follow checklist and steps to help you get started in GCP within minutes. So let me show you how it works. So over here, you can see this is the setup checklist that we have. And for example, whatever I did just now, for example, like adding users, giving administrator access, etc., resource hierarchy, all this is included in this checklist. So if you can go through step by step, and we also have buttons to help you with, to guide you through. Right? And once you're done with the task, you can just check this task, right? Yeah, so this is basically to help you get started on GCP. Okay, cool. So that's it from me, and I hope my session gave you great foundational understanding of GCP. Coming up next will be Andrew Du showing you how to run your first workload on GCP. If you know someone who would benefit from watching this session, or you would like to watch it again, all of today's presentation will be available on demand in the next few days, and you will be able to access them via the program link. And feel free to continue the conversation and tag us with #Google Cloud Tech Series on social media. Bye.